This is 98.3 FM, Outbreak FM, David Morgan here. It's 2:17 a.m. on what started as a quiet Saturday night, and I need everyone listening right now to pay very close attention to what I'm about to tell you. Because in the last 38 minutes, something has happened at Riverside General Hospital that police are calling an active threat situation, and the details we're getting don't make any sense. Sarah just handed me the initial dispatch reports, and I'm reading them twice because they sound like something out of a horror movie, not a real emergency call. At 1:39 a.m., Riverside General's emergency room called 911 reporting that a patient had attacked medical staff. Not verbally, physically attacked, bit a nurse on the arm, bit a nurse on the hand, and when security tried to restrain this patient, the individual exhibited what responding officers are describing as abnormal strength and complete disregard for pain. The patient was a 34-year-old man brought in an hour earlier by ambulance after being found unconscious in an alley downtown. No ID, no visible injuries beyond what paramedics described as a severe bite wound on his shoulder. The wound was infected, tissue around it necrotic, black and rotting like the injury had happened days ago, not hours. But the man was alive, breathing, pulse, weak but present. He was placed in an examination room while doctors tried to stabilize him and identify the source of the infection. Standard emergency room protocol, and then at 1:37 a.m., 2 minutes before the attack, the patient-coded cardiac arrest flatline Dr. Lisa Chen was attending physician. She initiated resuscitation protocols, prepared to call time of death after appropriate attempts to revive, and then the patient sat up, not gradually regaining consciousness, just sat up. Flatlined heart monitor still showing zero cardiac activity, no pulse, no respiration, medically dead, but moving. Doctor Chen is a 20-year veteran of emergency medicine. She's seen seizures, muscle spasms, post-mortem reflexes. What she witnessed was none of those things. The patient opened his eyes, turned his head toward her, and lunged, grabbed her arm with both hands and tried to bite her. She pulled away just in time, called for security, and backed out of the room. Security arrived within 30 seconds. 2 officers, both trained in patient restraint. They entered the examination room, found the patient standing now, no longer on the gurney, moving with this shambling, uncoordinated gait, like his motor control was severely impaired. They attempted verbal de-escalation first, no response. Patient didn't acknowledge their presence, didn't react to commands, just kept moving toward the door where Dr. Chen was standing. Security tried to physically restrain him. That's when it got violent. The patient grabbed the first officer, bit him on the forearm hard enough to break skin through his uniform. Second officer deployed his taser. Contact made 50,000 volts. The patient didn't react, didn't fall, didn't even flinch, just kept moving, kept trying to bite anyone within reach. That it took for additional security personnel to subdue this individual. They finally got him restrained in the hospital's secure psychiatric holding area, but not before he'd bitten 3 people total. The nurse, the security officer, and during the struggle, one of the additional responders. 3 people bitten by a patient with necrotic tissue infection and no cardiac activity. 3 people exposed to whatever pathogen is causing tissue death and apparent reanimation of deceased individuals. 2:24 a.m. now. Sarah's on the phone with Riverside General, trying to get updates on the restrained patient's condition. Hospital administration is being extremely careful with information, citing HIPAA privacy laws, but we're hearing through emergency service channels that the patient's status hasn't changed. Still no pulse, still no respiration, still moving, still trying to bite anyone who approaches the holding area. Medically dead but physically active. That's not supposed to be possible. Death means cessation of biological function. No heartbeat means no blood circulation. No blood circulation means no oxygen to brain tissue. No oxygen to brain means no motor control within minutes. But this individual has been without cardiac activity for 47 minutes and is still exhibiting coordinated movement. Dr. Chen is describing it as the most disturbing thing she's seen in her career. She keeps using the word wrong. Everything about the patient's presentation is wrong. The necrotic tissue spreading from the bite wound, the lack of vital signs, the violent behavior, the immunity to pain. None of it fits any medical condition she's encountered or studied. And here's what's making emergency responders particularly concerned. The original bite wound on the patient's shoulder, the injury he had when he was brought in, that wasn't from an animal. The bite pattern shows human dental structure. Someone bit this man, and whatever infection killed him and reanimated him, it came from that human bite, which means there's someone else out there, someone who bit this patient, someone who might be experiencing the same progression. Bite, wound, infection, death, reanimation, violent behavior. and we have no idea where they are or how many people they might have bitten before this patient ended up in an alley. Sarah's pulling up police reports from the last 24 hours looking for anything involving bites, attacks, unusual behavior, and she's finding 3 separate incidents, all within a 5-mile radius of where our patient was discovered, all involving individuals exhibiting violent behavior and attempting to bite others. All of those individuals were detained, taken to hospitals for evaluation, and Sarah's checking hospital admission records now. All 3 were brought to different medical facilities, and all 3 are currently listed as deceased. Time of death ranging from 30 minutes to 3 hours ago, cause of death pending autopsy. But if they're following the same pattern as our Riverside General patient, they might not be as deceased as their medical charts indicate. 2:31 a.m. I'm going to say something that sounds insane, but I need to say it because the evidence we're looking at is pointing in a direction that medical science says is impossible. We might be witnessing the early stages of what popular culture has depicted in countless films and books, but what has never occurred in documented medical reality. People dying from infected bites, people reanimating after death, people exhibiting violent behavior focused on biting others. This is the beginning of what looks like a zombie outbreak. I know how that sounds. I know the immediate reaction is to dismiss it as fiction, as media panic, as irresponsible broadcasting, but I'm looking at police reports, hospital records, eyewitness testimony from trained medical professionals, and all of it is describing exactly what zombie outbreak scenarios have always predicted would happen. Sarah is frantically researching infectious diseases that could cause these symptoms. Rabies causes aggression and biting behavior, but rabies doesn't kill and reanimate within hours. Prion diseases cause neurological deterioration, but they don't result in post-mortem animation. There's no known pathogen in medical literature that matches what we're observing, which means either this is an unknown disease that coincidentally mimics fictional zombie behavior, or something has entered our reality that shouldn't exist according to everything we understand about biology and death. 2:38 a.m. Breaking development. The 3 people bitten by our Riverside General patient, they're all showing symptoms. The nurse was bitten 41 minutes ago. She's reporting severe pain at the bite site, tissue discoloration spreading from the wound, and a fever of 103.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Her symptoms are progressing faster than the original patient's did, suggesting that whatever pathogen this is, it's becoming more virulent with each transmission. The security officers bitten during the restraint are experiencing similar progression. One is already unconscious, vital signs weakening. The other is in severe distress, describing the pain as burning, like acid spreading through his veins from the bite wound. Dr. Chen is administering broad-spectrum antibiotics, antivirals, anything that might slow the infection. But she's not optimistic. She's seen the original patient's progression, knows where this leads, and she's preparing for the possibility that within the next hour, she might have 3 more reanimated individuals to contain. The hospital has activated emergency lockdown protocols, all entrances sealed except for ambulance bay, security stationed at every access point, staff being briefed on the situation, patients being moved away from the areas where infected individuals are being held. It's not quite quarantine yet, but it's preparation for quarantine, and it's not just Riverside General anymore. Sarah's monitoring emergency channels, and we're getting reports from the other hospitals where those initial attack victims were taken. All 3 individuals previously declared deceased are showing activity. All 3 are being restrained after attempting to bite staff members. All 3 are exhibiting the same symptoms. No vital signs, necrotic tissue, violent behavior, immunity to pain. We have 4 confirmed reanimated individuals across 4 different hospitals, and at least 6 people bitten in the last hour who are progressing toward the same state. The infection is spreading, the attacks are multiplying, and the medical system is completely unprepared for what's happening. 2:46 a.m. I need to give specific information to anyone listening, because this might save your life. If you encounter someone exhibiting these symptoms, aggressive behavior, trying to bite, unresponsive to verbal communication, moving with impaired motor control, do not approach them, do not try to help, do not attempt to restrain them yourself. Call 911 immediately and evacuate the area. If you are bitten, seek immediate medical attention. Tell emergency responders about the bite, describe the symptoms the attacker was exhibiting, and insist on isolation protocols. We don't know yet if there's a treatment that can stop the progression, but early intervention is your best chance. Avoid densely populated areas if possible. The infection spreads through bites. More people means more potential victims and more potential infected. If you can stay home, stay home. If you can't, maintain distance from anyone exhibiting unusual behavior. This is Outbreak FM. 98.3 on your dial, and I'm going to stay on air as long as possible, providing updates, sharing information from emergency services, helping you understand what's happening and how to protect yourself. Because right now, in the early hours of this outbreak, information is the only weapon we have against something that medical science can't explain and can't treat. Sarah is setting up direct feeds from police and fire department channels. We're going to monitor every emergency call, track every incident, map the spread of this infection in real time. If you're listening, stay with us. We'll get through this together. 2:53 a.m. The nurse bitten at Riverside General has died. Time of death, 2:51 a.m. Cause cardiac arrest following rapid systemic infection from bite wound. Elapsed time from bite to death, 53 minutes. That's significantly faster than the original patient's progression, confirming that the pathogen is becoming more aggressive with each transmission. Dr. Chun is keeping the nurse's body under observation in a secured area. Based on the pattern we've established, reanimation should occur within minutes. And she's right. At 2:54 a.m., 3 minutes after cardiac arrest, the nurse's eyes open, no pulse, no respiration, but conscious movement. And the first thing she does is sit up and try to bite the medical examiner who was documenting time of death. The examiner backs away safely. Security moves in with restraints. But here's what's different about this reanimation. The nurse moves faster than the original patient did. More coordinated. Less of that shambling gait we saw earlier. Whatever this pathogen is, it's not just spreading, it's evolving, learning, adapting. We now have 5 reanimated individuals in Riverside General alone. All secured in isolated areas, all exhibiting violent behavior, all focused on one thing, biting anyone within reach. The hospital has called for National Guard support, requesting armed personnel to help maintain containment, because hospital security isn't equipped to handle multiple aggressive pain-immune individuals who can't be reasoned with or sedated. 3:04 a.m. Reports are coming in from across the city. We're no longer tracking isolated incidents. This is widespread outbreak. Sarah's monitoring 911 calls, and the pattern is consistent everywhere. Attacks, bites, rapid infection, death, reanimation, more attacks. The cycle repeating faster with each generation of infected. Downtown Entertainment District is experiencing multiple simultaneous attacks. Bars were closing, people were walking home, and infected individuals emerged from alleys, parking structures, darkened doorways. Witnesses describe them as moving in groups, coordinating their attacks, cornering victims. This is new behavior. The early infected were solitary, attacking opportunistically, but these newer reanimated individuals are exhibiting pack hunting tactics, working together, surrounding prey. That suggests the pathogen doesn't just reanimate, it creates some kind of collective behavior among the infected. Police are responding to every call, but they're overwhelmed. Officers aren't trained for this. They're trained to subdue living suspects through pain compliance and restraint. But these infected individuals don't feel pain and can't be reasoned with. Tasers don't work. Pepper spray doesn't work. Physical restraint is dangerous because it requires close contact, and close contact means potential bites. Several officers have already been bitten, approximately 8 according to dispatch records. All are being transported to hospitals for treatment, but we know how this ends. They'll die within an hour, they'll reanimate, they'll become infected themselves. And when police officers turn, when trained, armed individuals become violent reanimated attackers, the threat level escalates dramatically. 3:19 a.m. The 2 security officers bitten at Riverside General have both died and reanimated. Total reanimated count at that facility alone is now 7, and the hospital is running out of secure areas to contain them. The psychiatric holding wing only has 6 isolation rooms. They've exceeded capacity. Staff is improvising containment using regular patient rooms with reinforced doors, but those weren't designed to hold individuals with abnormal strength. Dr. Chen is recommending full hospital evacuation, moving all non-infected patients to other facilities before the reanimated break containment. But where do they go? Every hospital in the city is dealing with the same crisis. Every medical facility has infected individuals, has staff who've been bitten, has limited containment capacity. The medical system is collapsing faster than anyone predicted. Hospitals operate on thin margins in normal circumstances. They don't have infrastructure for mass quarantine or containment of violent patients. And now, in the space of 90 minutes, that's exactly what they're being asked to do across the entire metropolitan area. 3:28 a.m. Social media is exploding with eyewitness accounts. Videos being posted from downtown showing attacks in real time. Sarah's watching footage right now, and it's confirming our worst fears. The infected are multiplying exponentially. What started as for individuals at 4 hospitals has become dozens of attacks across the city in less than 2 hours. One video shows a group of infected surrounding a car. The driver locked the doors, but the infected are pounding on windows, trying to break through glass. Relentless, no fatigue, no hesitation, just single-minded focus on reaching the people inside. Another video from a convenience store, an infected individual inside, the clerk trapped behind the counter. The infected can't figure out how to get past the barrier, but it keeps trying, keeps reaching, keeps attempting to grab the clerk. Primitive problem solving, but problem solving nonetheless. The pathogen preserves some cognitive function, enough to pursue prey with determination, if not intelligence. Comments on these videos are split between denial and panic. Half the people think it's a prank, a viral marketing campaign for a horror film. The other half recognize this is real and are terrified. Sarah's monitoring the threads, and already people are trying to figure out where to go. How to protect themselves, whether to flee the city or barricade in their homes. 3:37 a.m. The mayor's office has called an emergency press conference scheduled for 4 a.m. 23 minutes from now. They're bringing together city officials, health department representatives, police and fire chiefs, probably federal authorities too. This is the moment when the government officially acknowledges what's happening and provides guidance to the public. But what can they say? We don't know what's causing this. We don't know how to treat it. We don't know how to stop the spread except through complete isolation. And even that only works if we can identify and contain every infected individual before they bite someone else. And with attacks happening across the city simultaneously, that's impossible. The best case scenario is that they announce mandatory curfew, order everyone to stay indoors, shut down public spaces to limit contact opportunities. But curfews only work if people comply, and panic makes compliance unlikely. People will flee, try to escape the city, clog highways, creating traffic jams where the infected can attack hundreds of trapped drivers. We've seen this pattern in every zombie movie ever made, and now we're living it in real time. 3:46 a.m. Riverside General has lost containment. One of the reanimated individuals broke through a reinforced door. Sarah's listening to the emergency call right now. The infected got into a hallway where non-infected patients were being evacuated. Staff tried to create barriers, but the infected is moving faster than evacuation can proceed. It attacked an elderly patient in a wheelchair, bit her on the neck. Security is responding with firearms. This is the first confirmed case of weapons being discharged inside a medical facility. The security officer fired 3 shots sent en masse. All 3 hits confirmed. The infected individual fell, but Sarah's hearing on the emergency channel that the infected is getting back up. Gunshots to the torso aren't stopping them. Cardiac damage doesn't matter when your heart isn't beating. Lung damage doesn't matter when you're not breathing. The only target that stops reanimated individuals is the brain. Security is being advised to aim for the head, destroy the brainstem, prevent neural function, and the reanimated collapse. It's the same kill method every zombie fiction has established, and it's proving accurate in practice. But training officers to make headshots in high-stress situations with potential for civilian casualties is nightmare logistics. The elderly patient who was bitten is being rushed to emergency treatment, but we know it's futile. She'll die. She'll reanimate another infected to contain. Another vector for transmission. The cycle continues, accelerating beyond our ability to track individual cases. 3:54 a.m. We're 6 minutes from the mayor's press conference, and Sarah just showed me something disturbing from social media. Someone posted a video from inside their apartment building. Multiple infected in the hallways, going door to door. Not breaking down doors yet, but testing them, pounding, looking for ways inside. The person filming is terrified, whispering into their phone, asking if anyone knows what to do. The comments are full of advice. Some people saying to stay quiet, don't draw attention. Others saying to barricade the door with furniture. A few saying to arm yourself with whatever you have, kitchen knives, baseball bats, anything. And scattered among practical advice are comments from people who recognize this pattern from fiction, who are calling this what it is. Zombie outbreak. The term is spreading. Hashtag zombie apocalypse is trending. People are connecting what they're seeing to cultural narratives they've consumed for years, and that's both helpful and dangerous. Helpful because those narratives provide behavioral models, survival strategies that might actually work. Dangerous because they also create panic, make people think this is the end of civilization rather than a crisis that might be containable. Sarah is documenting everything for our continuous coverage. Every video, every report, every eyewitness account. Building a chronological record of how this outbreak developed and spread. because either we'll survive this and need documentation for understanding how it happened, or we won't survive and this record becomes evidence of humanity's final crisis. Either way, the story needs to be preserved. 4:01 a.m. The mayor's press conference is starting. I'm putting it on our main feed so listeners can hear the official response. Mayor Richard Henderson at the podium, flanked by Police Chief Maria Rodriguez, Fire Chief Thomas Brennan, Health Director Dr. Anthony Patel, and someone in military uniform I don't recognize yet. Mayor Henderson begins. At approximately 1:40 a.m., Riverside General Hospital reported an incident involving a violent patient. Since that time, we have received multiple reports of similar incidents across the city. I want to be clear with everyone, we are facing an unprecedented public health crisis. The individuals involved in these attacks are exhibiting behavior consistent with severe neurological impairment. They are extremely dangerous and should not be approached under any circumstances. He's not using the word zombie. He's framing this as medical crisis, neurological disease. Technically accurate but deliberately avoiding the term that everyone's already using online. That's political calculation. Don't inflame panic with loaded terminology. Police Chief Rodriguez takes over. We are implementing emergency protocols citywide. Effective immediately, a mandatory curfew is in effect. All residents are ordered to return to their homes and remain indoors until further notice. All businesses except emergency services are to cease operations. Roads are being closed to non-emergency traffic. Anyone who violates curfew will be detained. Fire Chief Brennan, emergency services are operating at maximum capacity. If you call 911, understand that response times may be delayed. Priority is being given to life-threatening emergencies. If you encounter an individual exhibiting violent behavior, do not engage. Retreat to a secure location and call for help. Dr. Patel, Health Director, we are working with the CDC and federal health authorities to identify the pathogen causing these symptoms. Until we have more information, we're implementing strict quarantine protocols. Anyone who has been bitten must report to designated medical facilities immediately. Do not attempt home treatment. Isolation is critical to preventing further spread. The military officer steps forward. General Patricia Arley's National Guard. The governor has authorized deployment of National Guard units to assist local law enforcement in maintaining order and establishing quarantine zones. Troops are mobilizing now and will be operational within 2 hours. Their orders are to protect civilians and contain the infected by any means necessary. Any means necessary. That's military code for lethal force authorization. The National Guard is being given permission to shoot infected individuals on sight. This is martial law without calling it martial law. 4:08 a.m. The press conference continues with questions from reporters, but the answers are all variations of, we don't know yet. They don't know what's causing this. Don't know how many infected there are. Don't know if the spread can be stopped. The only concrete information is the curfew and the National Guard deployment. Sarah is already seeing the effects on social media. People flooding highways trying to leave the city before the Guard establishes roadblocks. Traffic cameras showing massive jams on every major route out. Exactly what I predicted. Panic-driven evacuation creating opportunities for the infected to attack hundreds of trapped drivers. The mayor is urging people to stay home, but that message is competing with survival instinct. When people hear zombie outbreak, their cultural programming tells them to flee, to get away from population centers, to find somewhere isolated and defensible. Staying in urban apartments feels like suicide, even if it's statistically safer than being stuck in traffic. For 17 a.m. we're 2 hours and 40 minutes into this crisis. The infected count has grown from 4 confirmed cases to an estimated 200 based on 911 call volume and social media reports. That's exponential growth. Each infected individual bites multiple people before being contained or destroyed. Each of those victims becomes infected, dies, reanimates, and continues the cycle. Mathematical progression suggests we could have thousands of infected by dawn. The sun rises at 6:47 a.m., 2.5 hours from now. Daylight will either make this crisis more manageable by improving visibility and coordination, or it will reveal the true scope of catastrophe that darkness has been hiding. I'm staying on air, Sarah's staying with me. We're going to document every development, provide real-time information, help you survive whatever comes next. Because this is no longer just broadcasting. This is emergency communication. This is the difference between people making informed decisions and people dying from ignorance. Stay with Outbreak FM. Stay alive. We'll get through this together. For 24 a.m. The National Guard isn't arriving in 2 hours. First units are arriving now. Sarah's monitoring military radio channels, and guard convoys are entering the city from multiple directions, establishing checkpoints on major roads, setting up field command posts in strategic locations, moving with efficiency that suggests this deployment was pre-planned, rehearsed, prepared for before tonight's outbreak. That's suspicious. The mayor's office claimed they activated the guard at 3 a.m., but military mobilization takes time. You can't have fully equipped units rolling into city streets 90 minutes after activation unless they were already staged nearby. Unless someone knew this was coming and positioned resources in advance. Sarah's researching recent military activity in the region, and she's finding references to emergency preparedness exercises conducted by the National Guard 3 days ago. Training scenario described as civil unrest response and biological containment protocols. They were practicing for exactly this situation less than a week before it happened. Coincidence? Or did federal authorities have intelligence about a potential outbreak? Was there a warning we didn't receive? A threat assessment that predicted this crisis and triggered prepositioning of military assets? I don't want to fuel conspiracy theories during an active emergency, but the timeline doesn't add up. Either we're witnessing unprecedented military response efficiency, or someone knew this was coming and didn't warn the public until it was already spreading. 4:33 a.m. Riverside General has been fully evacuated. All non-infected patients transported to other facilities. All medical staff withdrawn. The hospital is now quarantine zone occupied exclusively by infected individuals. Approximately 15 reanimated patients inside. National Guard has established perimeter around the building, preventing anyone from entering or leaving. Dr. Chen was among the last to evacuate. She's being debriefed by military medical personnel about symptoms, progression patterns, containment challenges. Her testimony will inform guard protocols for handling infected individuals across the city, but she's also in quarantine herself. Potential exposure to the pathogen during close contact with infected patients means she needs isolation and observation for signs of infection. She's protesting, saying she wasn't bitten, wasn't directly exposed, should be allowed to continue treating patients. But protocols are absolute. Anyone with exposure gets quarantined. No exceptions. The Guard is prioritizing containment over individual circumstances. It's harsh, but necessary when dealing with exponential spread. 4:41 a.m., the first National Guard checkpoint has engaged infected individuals. Highway 7 northbound, approximately 3 miles from downtown. Drivers fleeing the city encountered a group of infected blocking the road. Some drivers tried to turn around, others attempted to drive through. The infected swarmed vehicles, broke windows, pulled people out. Guard soldiers opened fire. M for carbines, semi-automatic precise shots, headshots when possible, sent to mass when necessary. 8 infected, terminated, no military casualties, but 15 civilians were bitten during the attack. All 15 are being detained, transported to military quarantine facility, isolated pending symptom development. Sarah is listening to eyewitness accounts from drivers who witnessed the engagement. They describe the infected as fearless, walking directly toward soldiers who were actively shooting. No self-preservation instinct, no fear of weapons, just relentless advance until brain destruction stops them permanently. This is going to be the pattern everywhere. Infected attack. Military responds with lethal force. Some infected are stopped, but not before they bite civilians. Those civilians become new infected. The cycle continues. You can't shoot your way out of exponential growth unless you achieve 100% kill rate before anyone gets bitten, and that's statistically impossible in chaotic combat conditions. 4:52 a.m., reports from the downtown entertainment district are getting worse. What started as isolated attacks has become concentrated infestation. Hundreds of infected moving through the streets in loosely organized groups. They're drawn to noise, to movement, to any indication of living humans, and they're learning, adapting their hunting strategies. Some groups create noise to draw out hidden survivors while others wait to ambush anyone who emerges. This is sophisticated behavior for beings that supposedly have no higher brain function. The pathogen preserves or creates some form of tactical thinking. Not intelligence exactly, but pattern recognition and adaptive response. That's terrifying because it means the infected aren't mindless. They're reduced cognition, operating on primitive drives. But they can learn and coordinate. That makes them far more dangerous than random shambling zombies. National Guard units are moving into downtown with armored vehicles, establishing firing lines, preparing to clear the area block by block. But urban combat against enemies who don't fear death and who convert your casualties into new enemies is nightmare logistics. Every mistake costs lives. Every civilian casualty potentially becomes a new infected. 5:03 a.m. Sarah just received a call from her neighbor, Mrs. Tanaka, elderly woman who lives in the apartment above ours. She's reporting sounds in her hallway, scratching at her door, labored breathing. She is terrified, asking if she should call 911 or stay quiet. Sarah's advising her to stay quiet, stay away from the door, move to the furthest room in her apartment. Don't draw attention, don't make noise, wait for help. But we both know help might not come in time. Emergency services are overwhelmed. Even if Mrs. Tanaka calls 911, response could take hours. This is the reality now. People trapped in their homes with infected in their buildings. Police and guard can't be everywhere simultaneously. Each person has to make decisions about their own survival without knowing if help will arrive. It's psychological torture. The waiting, the uncertainty, the sounds of infected nearby, and no way to know if you're safe or about to be attacked. Sarah wants to go help Mrs. Tanaka. I'm telling her, absolutely not. We're on the 7th floor of our building. We have no way to know how many infected are between here and Mrs. Tanaka's apartment. Going out there could get Sarah killed or infected. And we have a responsibility to keep broadcasting, to keep providing information to people across the city who are depending on us. Sarah understands the logic, but hates it. This is the moral calculus of outbreak survival. You can't save everyone. Sometimes you can't even save your neighbors. You have to make cold decisions about who's worth risking your life for and who isn't. And those decisions eat at your humanity even when they're correct. 5:16 a.m. Downtown clearance operation has begun. National Guard advancing in formation, firing on infected, attempting to push them back from populated areas. But the infected aren't retreating. They're moving toward the gunfire, drawn by noise, converging on guard positions. What was supposed to be a controlled advance is becoming surrounded engagement. Military commanders are calling for air support. Helicopters with mounted weapons to provide covering fire from above. But deployment of military aircraft over civilian airspace requires additional authorization. Coordination with FAA clearance protocols that take time. Time the surrounded guard units don't have. Sarah's monitoring military channels, and the situation is deteriorating. One unit has taken multiple casualties. Soldiers bitten during close combat. Officers making the impossible decision whether to shoot their own infected comrades or try to evacuate them for quarantine, knowing they'll turn into threats. This is the horror of zombie outbreak for military forces. Your brothers in arms become enemies. People you've trained with, fought beside, trusted with your life. And you have to shoot them in the head to stop them from killing everyone else. That level of trauma, that psychological burden, it breaks people even if they survive physically. 5:29 a.m. We're receiving reports from across the city that the infection is spreading into residential areas. Infected, breaking into apartment buildings, houses, anywhere people are sheltering. Some buildings have security that's holding. Others are being overrun. The infected seem to be able to detect living humans somehow. Movement, body heat, sound, we don't know. But they're finding occupied buildings and concentrating their attacks. One particularly disturbing report from a high-rise on the north side. Infected on multiple floors, residents trapped. Some have barricaded their doors successfully. Others, the emergency calls are describing screams, sounds of doors breaking, then silence. Those apartments have fallen. The residents are either dead or infected now. Fire department wants to evacuate the building, but they can't send crews in while infected are active inside. It's too dangerous. So they're waiting for National Guard to clear the building, waiting for infected to move on. Waiting while people inside die because rescue is impossible under current conditions. This is triage on a city scale. Emergency services deciding which buildings can be saved and which have to be abandoned. Which neighborhoods are defendable and which need to be written off. It's brutal calculation, but it's necessary when resources are finite and threat is expanding exponentially. 5:42 a.m. The sun is starting to lighten the eastern horizon. Not full daylight yet, but enough to see better. And what we're seeing in aerial footage from news helicopters is horrifying. The infected aren't scattered individuals anymore. They're massed in certain areas. Hundreds concentrated downtown. Dozens in various residential neighborhoods. Moving in coordinated groups. Attacking. Population estimates suggest there are now between 500 and 1,000 infected in the metropolitan area. That's conservative based on confirmed sightings. Actual numbers could be significantly higher. And with each passing hour, that number grows. Each infected individual that isn't destroyed will create more infected. The growth is exponential until we achieve containment or run out of living humans to infect. Military strategists are recommending establishment of safe zones, designated areas that are completely cleared of infected, heavily defended, where civilians can evacuate for protection. But creating safe zones means abandoning everywhere else, means writing off entire neighborhoods, leaving people to fend for themselves while resources concentrate on defendable positions. The mayor hasn't authorized that strategy yet. Still hoping for containment, for medical breakthrough, for something that stops the spread without sacrificing huge portions of the city. But hope isn't strategy, and the longer we wait to make hard decisions, the fewer options we'll have when reality forces those decisions on us. 5:48 a.m. Sarah's neighbor, Mrs. Tanaka, has stopped answering her phone. We heard sounds through the ceiling about 10 minutes ago, thumping, furniture being moved, then nothing, silence. Sarah's crying quietly at her desk, knowing what that silence probably means. Her neighbor is gone. Either fled the apartment somehow, or attacked and killed, or infected. We don't know. Can't know. Can't go check because that would mean opening our own door, exposing ourselves to whatever is in that hallway. So we sit here, broadcasting to the city, providing information to thousands of people while unable to help one person we actually knew and cared about. This is the crushing guilt of survival, being alive and safe while others die. Having the means to communicate but not the means to rescue. Documenting tragedy instead of preventing it. I'm a radio broadcaster. I'm not equipped to fight infected. I'm not trained for combat or rescue operations. My value is in staying alive and keeping this channel active so information keeps flowing. But knowing that doesn't make it feel any less like cowardice. 5:54 a.m. Full sunrise in 53 minutes. The sky is getting lighter, revealing details that darkness mercifully hid. Aerial footage shows bodies in the streets, cars abandoned mid-escape attempt, fires burning in several locations where chaos led to accidents or deliberate destruction. The city looks like a war zone, and we're only 4 hours into this crisis. National Guard has established 3 safe zones: Convention Center downtown, University campus to the west, Civic Arena on the east side. Each location is being fortified with military barriers, guard posts, heavy weapons. Civilians who can reach these zones are being processed, checked for bites, admitted to protected areas. But the majority of people can't reach the zones. They're trapped in their homes, scattered across neighborhoods where military presence is thin or non-existent. Sarah's mapping the safe zones and the known infected concentrations. There are huge gaps in coverage, entire residential sections with no military protection and high infected activity. Those areas are effectively written off already. The Guard doesn't have enough personnel to defend everywhere, so they're prioritizing high-value locations and abandoning the rest. It's the correct strategic decision. Harsh but necessary. You can't save everyone when resources are limited. But telling that to people trapped in the abandoned zones, telling them they're on their own, that's a sentence of death for many of them. 6:04 a.m. The downtown clearance operation has been suspended. Too many Guard casualties. Too many infected concentrated in the area. Military commanders are pulling back to defensive positions, abandoning the attempt to clear infected from the downtown core. The entertainment district is now officially a hot zone. No rescue operations, no evacuation attempts. Anyone still alive in there is on their own. Sarah's monitoring emergency calls from that area. People trapped in bars, restaurants, hotels, calling for help that isn't coming, begging for someone to get them out, and dispatch has to tell them there's no one available, that they need to shelter in place, that help will come when possible, knowing it probably won't, knowing that these callers will likely die before rescue becomes feasible. Those calls are being recorded, preserved as documentation of who was where when this crisis escalated beyond response capacity. But documentation doesn't save lives. It just ensures that someone will remember the people we couldn't help. 6:17 a.m. A new development that changes our understanding of the infected. One of the Guard units engaged a group of infected and noticed something disturbing. The infected were wearing clothing that identified them. Police uniforms, paramedic badges, hospital staff ID. These were first responders who got bitten in the early hours of the outbreak, who died and reanimated, who are now among the infected attacking the city they were trying to protect. This is psychologically devastating for military and emergency personnel, knowing that the infected they're fighting could be colleagues, friends, partners, that every headshot might be killing someone they worked with yesterday. The infected don't retain individual identity, don't recognize former associates, but the living do, and having to shoot your former partner because they're now a violent reanimated threat, that's trauma that doesn't heal. Sarah found footage online from a police dashcam, shows an officer confronting an infected individual wearing a police uniform. The officer recognizes his partner, Rodriguez, who was reported bitten and killed 3 hours ago. The officer is hesitating, calling Rodriguez's name, trying to reach whatever might remain of his friend's consciousness. Rodriguez shambles toward him, arms reaching, mouth open. The officer finally shoots. Perfect headshot. Rodriguez drops. The officer collapses to his knees, sobbing. That video has been viewed 50,000 times in 10 minutes. People sharing it, crying over it, recognizing the impossible choices this outbreak forces on survivors. Kill your friends or die with them. There's no middle ground, no happy ending, just survival at the cost of humanity. 6:29 a.m. Riverside General, the hospital that was evacuated and quarantined, is now completely overrun. The 15 infected inside have somehow breached the perimeter. Guard units containing the building report infected emerging from multiple exits, moving in coordinated groups, attacking the perimeter forces. The guard is falling back, establishing new containment line further from the building, but they've lost equipment inside the hospital. Medical supplies, weapons, communications equipment, all of it now inaccessible because retrieving it would mean re-entering infected controlled territory. And here's what's particularly concerning. The infected emerging from the hospital are moving with more coordination than earlier infected showed, like they spent the time inside organizing themselves, developing strategy. The pathogen might be creating collective intelligence among groups of infected, not individual consciousness, but hive behavior that gets more sophisticated as more infected connect. If that's true, if infected become more dangerous in groups, then the concentrations we're seeing downtown and in other hot zones aren't just problems because of numbers. They're problems because those hundreds of infected might be developing into coordinated swarms with tactical capability. 6:39 a.m. The mayor is making another announcement. Emergency broadcast interrupting regular programming on all channels. Mayor Henderson at the podium, visibly exhausted, flanked by fewer officials than the previous conference. Several are missing, infected, dead. We don't know. The situation has deteriorated significantly in the past 3 hours. We currently estimate between 1 and 2,000 infected individuals in the metropolitan area. Military and emergency services are unable to respond to all incidents. I am ordering immediate evacuation of all citizens from designated hot zones. He's displaying a map showing huge sections of the city marked in red. Hot zones, areas with high infected concentration where evacuation is no longer possible and survival is unlikely. The map includes the downtown core, several residential neighborhoods, the waterfront district, probably 40% of the city's total area marked as abandoned. If you are in a red zone, you are advised to shelter in place and defend yourself by any means necessary. Help cannot reach you at this time. If you are in a yellow zone, evacuate immediately to designated safe zones. If you are in a green zone, remain indoors and await further instructions. Sarah is checking our location. We're in yellow zone. Evacuation advised. But evacuating means leaving the broadcast station, abandoning our equipment, ending the information flow that thousands of people are depending on. Do we save ourselves or keep broadcasting? I'm making the decision. We stay, as long as we can. As long as the building remains secure. Our responsibility isn't just to ourselves, it's to everyone listening who needs real-time information to survive. We stay until staying becomes impossible. Sarah nods agreement. She understands. This is bigger than us. 6:47 a.m. Sunrise. Full daylight revealing the scope of catastrophe that night concealed. The city is burning in multiple locations, smoke rising from fires that emergency services can't reach to extinguish. Infected visible on major streets, wandering in groups, hunting for living humans. The metropolitan area has been transformed from functional city to post-apocalyptic hellscape in less than 5 hours. National Guard estimates that 90% of the city's population is still in their homes. Approximately 1 million people sheltering in place, hoping their doors hold, praying the infected don't find them. 10% either evacuated successfully to safe zones or fled the city entirely. The remaining population, exact numbers unknown, is dead or infected. Those percentages will shift dramatically in the coming hours. As infected numbers grow and military resources stretch thinner, more people will be attacked, bitten, killed. The survival rate is dropping exponentially. By tonight, if this continues at current trajectory, half the city could be infected or dead. That's not speculation. That's mathematical projection based on observed spread rates and response capacity. We're losing this fight, not because military and emergency services aren't trying, Because the enemy is exponentially self-replicating, and every casualty becomes a new threat. 6:58 a.m. Sarah just showed me something that might be the most disturbing development yet. Someone posted aerial footage from a drone flying over the downtown hot zone. The infected aren't just wandering randomly. They've congregated in a specific location, the Central Plaza, hundreds of them, standing in organized formation, not attacking each other, not moving, just standing there, waiting. For what? We don't know. But the behavior suggests purpose beyond simple hunting for prey. The infected are doing something collectively, organizing for some objective we can't understand from outside their pathogen-altered consciousness. One researcher commenting on the video suggests this might be swarm staging behavior. Infected gathering in large groups before dispersing to attack new areas. Like they're building up numbers, reaching critical mass, then deploying in coordinated waves. That would explain the sudden surges of infected appearing in previously clear neighborhoods. Not random wandering. Strategic deployment. If the infected are capable of that level of organization, if they're planning their attacks instead of just responding to immediate prey stimuli, then we're not fighting zombies, we're fighting something worse. An emerging collective intelligence that uses human bodies as instruments for spreading itself. That's not just survival horror, that's existential threat to human civilization. 7:05 a.m., we're 5 hours into this outbreak. The initial 4 infected have become 2,000. 2,000 have bitten an unknown number who will soon reanimate. The cascade is accelerating beyond any response capacity. Military strategists are now discussing worst-case scenarios. Total city loss. Complete evacuation of survivors. Abandoning the metropolitan area to the infected and establishing containment perimeters miles outside city limits. That would mean writing off 1 million people. Declaring everyone who didn't evacuate already as casualties. Sacrificing a major American city to prevent the infection from spreading regionally or nationally. It's the nuclear option. The thing you do when all other responses have failed. And we're not there yet. There's still hope for containment. It's still possibility that military reinforcements, better tactics, medical breakthrough could stop the spread. But hope is fading fast. Reality is teaching us that this pathogen is more virulent, more adaptive, more devastating than anything we've encountered. Sarah is reading social media posts from people in other cities, watching news coverage of our outbreak, expressing fear that it could happen to them, and they're right to be afraid. If we don't contain this here, if even one infected individual escapes the city and reaches another population center, this starts over somewhere else. The global pandemic scenario. Zombie apocalypse spreading from city to city until everywhere is overrun. This is humanity's test. Either we prove we can respond effectively to existential biological threat, or we prove we're too slow, too unprepared, too fragmented, to save ourselves. The next few hours will determine which outcome we achieve. 7:12 a.m. Federal authorities have arrived. CDC, FBI, FEMA, and someone from an organization I don't recognize. USAID, United States Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases. They handle bioweapons, emerging pathogens, worst-case biological scenarios. Their presence confirms that this outbreak is being treated as potential extinction-level event. Dr. Rebecca Torres from USAID is briefing military commanders. Sarah's listening to the audio feed. Dr. Torres is describing the pathogen as unprecedented in medical literature. Not a virus, not a bacteria, something else. Something that rewrites cellular function, preserves motor control after cardiac death, creates coordinated behavior across infected individuals. She's using terms like collective organism and distributed consciousness. The scientific community is as baffled as the rest of us, but she's also describing potential countermeasures. The infected are vulnerable to brain destruction, that's confirmed. But there might be other vulnerabilities. Temperature extremes, chemical exposure, electromagnetic interference. These are experimental theories, untested in field conditions, but they're options when conventional weapons are insufficient. Military is authorizing experimental protocols. They're going to try everything. Incendiary weapons to test heat vulnerability, chemical dispersal to test toxin susceptibility, electromagnetic pulse devices to test if the pathogen uses bioelectric signals that can be disrupted. It's desperate science. Trial and error against an enemy that's learning and adapting faster than we can develop responses. 7:24 a.m. The first experimental countermeasure is being deployed. Incendiary strike on the downtown plaza where hundreds of infected have congregated. Military aircraft incoming. Napalm payload. The goal is to see if sustained high temperature destroys infected more efficiently than conventional weapons. Sarah's watching live feed from news helicopter hovering at safe distance. The aircraft makes its approach, releases payload. Fireball engulfs the plaza, flames spreading across hundreds of infected standing in formation. The heat is intense enough that even from helicopter altitude, the camera lens is distorting from thermal radiation. For 30 seconds, the entire plaza is an inferno. Then the flames begin to recede. Smoke clears enough to see the results, and what we're seeing is nightmarish. Some infected were destroyed, burned completely, no longer moving, but others survived, charred, burning, still walking, moving through the flames toward the edges of the strike zone. Still animated despite catastrophic thermal damage, the infected are more resilient than human tissue should be. Fire that would instantly kill living humans is only partially effective against reanimated bodies. The pathogen has somehow enhanced cellular resistance to heat, made flesh less vulnerable to thermal destruction. That means incendiary weapons aren't the solution. Might be useful in combination with other methods, but not sufficient alone. 7:36 a.m. Chemical strike is next. Military deploying tear gas mixed with chemical agents designed to disrupt neural function. If the infected are operating through preserved nervous system activity, disrupting neural transmission should incapacitate them. The chemical cloud disperses over a group of infected in the financial district. 50 individuals exposed. Concentration high enough to incapacitate normal humans instantly. The infected move through the cloud. No reaction, no incapacitation, no effect whatsoever. The pathogen has either made them immune to chemical agents, or they're operating through biological pathways that chemicals don't affect. 2 experimental countermeasures failed. The infected are resistant to heat and chemicals. That leaves conventional weapons, physical destruction, and the electromagnetic pulse option. Military is preparing EMP device now, but there's concern about collateral damage. EMP disables all electronics in the affected area. Using it in civilian zones means killing communications, destroying medical equipment, disabling vehicles. It could save lives by stopping infected, but it could also doom survivors who depend on electronic systems for life support or communication. 7:47 a.m. Our building has been breached. Sarah just heard breaking glass from the ground floor. Multiple infected inside. Building security is compromised. We're on the 7th floor. Stairwell access is our only evacuation route, and if infected are in the building, they could be in stairwells too. I'm making the decision. We barricade. We're not evacuating into uncertain conditions. We have supplies here. Water, some food, emergency equipment. We can survive in this studio for days if necessary. As long as the infected don't reach our floor, we're safer here than attempting evacuation through potentially infected occupied stairwells. Sarah is helping me move furniture against the door. Heavy desks, filing cabinets, anything that adds mass and resistance. The door is solid, lock is good, but if infected apply sustained force, if they push collectively with abnormal strength, the door might fail. The barricade is insurance. Extra layers between us and them. We can hear sounds from below now, thumping, movement. How many infected are in the building? Are they coming up? Do they know we're here? Sarah is trying to stay quiet, but I can see her hands shaking. This is real now. Not abstract crisis we're reporting on. Immediate threat inside our building, potentially outside our door within minutes. 7:54 a.m. Military is deploying EMP in the downtown hot zone despite collateral concerns. They've decided that stopping the infected concentration takes priority over preserving electronic infrastructure. The device is being positioned. Activation in 60 seconds. Sarah and I are watching the countdown. If this works, if EMP disrupts the pathogen's control over infected bodies, it could be the breakthrough we need. Proof that the infected have exploitable vulnerability. A strategy that can be scaled up and deployed across the city. 30 seconds. Military personnel are evacuating the EMP deployment zone. Only automated systems remaining. 20 seconds. News helicopters backing away to avoid electronics damage. 10 seconds. Sarah is holding my hand. We're both terrified and hopeful simultaneously. 0. The EMP activates. Electromagnetic pulse radiates outward from the device. Every electronic system within half-mile radius shuts down. Lights go dark. Vehicles die. The news feed from that area cuts out. We wait 30 seconds. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Communications from ground forces resume using backup systems outside the EMP radius. They report the infected are unaffected. Still moving, still animated, still hunting. The electromagnetic pulse had zero impact on pathogen function. All experimental countermeasures have failed. The infected are resistant to heat, chemicals, and electromagnetic disruption. The only confirmed kill method is physical destruction of the brain through conventional weapons, and that requires close engagement, precision shooting, conditions that are nearly impossible to maintain in chaotic combat against exponentially growing enemy forces. We're out of options, out of ideas, out of hope for easy solutions. This fight is going to be brutal, prolonged, and we're likely going to lose unless something changes dramatically. 8 a.m., 6 hours into the outbreak, the infected population is estimated at 5,000. Military casualties are at 30% and rising. Civilian death toll is unknown but likely in the thousands. 3 designated safe zones are barely holding under sustained infected pressure. The rest of the city is hot zones or contested territory, and we just heard footsteps in our hallway. Slow, shuffling. The sound of infected moving past our door, testing it, pushing against it. The barricade is holding, but for how long? Sarah and I look at each other. This might be our last broadcast. The infected might breach our barricade. We might not survive the next hour, but we're still on air, still transmitting, still providing information for as long as possible. This is David Morgan on Outbreak FM 98.3. Sarah Chen is here with me. We're barricaded in our studio with infected in our building. If this is our final transmission, if you're listening and we go silent, remember what we've documented. Share it, preserve it, let people know what happened here, how it started, how it spread, how we tried to fight. To everyone still alive, don't give up. Find shelter, find weapons, find community, survive, because humanity's future depends on the people who make it through this nightmare. We're staying on air until we can't anymore. Broadcasting truth until the very end. Stay safe out there. Stay human. And if you're bitten, I'm sorry there's no hope after infection. Make your peace.